to go. Hey, hi, it's Randy Wallace with Fox 26, and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Behind Breaking Bond. I have a special guest today, Precinct 1 Constable Alan Rosen. Constable Rosen, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Happy to be here.
We were talking earlier, you've been in law enforcement for 30 years.
31 years, actually, and I've loved this profession. It's probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. I've been a business guy and been in the law enforcement world that long, and I just love the profession.
What makes you like it so much?
You know, it's cliche, but really helping people.
Yeah.
It's satisfaction at the utmost to help somebody that's going through probably the worst time in their lives. We're catching people at the absolute worst time of their lives in a situation that's stressful and impactful, and it's going to stay with them probably the rest of their lives. So we get all walks of life. We get all kinds of different people, and trying to solve people's problems is probably what's the greatest asset law enforcement brings to the table.
As a law enforcement official, you've kind of seen some of the ramifications from the whole situation of multiple felony bonds, releasing people over and over again. It's got to be frustrating for you and your folks when that's what you see, the same folks over and over again.
It is, and that's contributing to our crime problem. And so we have got to be fair. The system's got to be fair and balanced, but I can tell you that when you see somebody come through the system for multiple felony bonds and the judiciary is letting people out that have gone and committed violent offenses, it does get frustrating. And I know the men and women of law enforcement are frustrated. And we do our piece, which is to go and work up a case and gather all the facts and all the evidence to file charges, and only to further down the system, we're out dealing with that same person again who was let out, and it gets frustrating, especially people. I mean, when I've heard somebody that's been out on a murder and they got out either on it's a cash bond system, they commit a new murder. That second murder should have never happened.
That's something that you would have never heard that even happening 5, 7, 8 years ago.
No. Because of course, if somebody's case gets assigned to a court, that case stays in that court until the disposition of the case. If they catch a new case and it's the same type of offense, like a felony offense, it stays with that judge's court. So that judge would be able to see, hey, this individual's already here with a pending, a felony case, and this is a new case. And they would have assessed it in a way that probably would have thought that they were a threat to society and either raise their bond to a very high level or no bond with them.
Right now, we are up to 156 Harris County residents who have been killed allegedly at the hands of a defendant out on multiple felony bonds. I mean, that's just incredible, isn't it? 150, and that's what we know of. There's obviously many, many more than that, but that's the number that we know of.
Yeah, and as I told you earlier, I deeply, deeply care about the community that I live in. I deeply care and take my job very seriously. And to hear a number like 156, it's unconscionable. And those people deserve, for their violence against them, they deserve somebody to fight for them. They deserve somebody to care about their lives and the manner in which they died. And if somebody was out that should not have been out, shame on the system for allowing them to be out.
Davis says, this is sad. Hold the judges responsible.
You agree with that?
Well, I think that we have to look at the entire system. I am for what we call a risk-based assessment of every person that goes before our criminal justice system, not the misdemeanors.
Right.
Like I was for misdemeanor bail reform.
Sure.
If you're too poor to get out of jail and you can't afford it, we shouldn't have a debtor's jail, okay? But I'm talking about people that are out there scaring the community, people that are making everybody scared to go out and shop, are worried about being followed home and being robbed at gunpoint or murdered for that matter. So I think that there is an element to the system where judges, certain judges, have applied the misdemeanor bail reform to the felony side of the system.
Well, there is no mandate. There's no federal order saying, "Hey, you have to do this." It's kind of like they've taken upon themselves to do it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there is a federal pending felony lawsuits pending in the federal court system for felony bond reform. But I got to tell you, I mean, this is a very slippery slope because everybody in that courtroom and everybody in the community, we have to care about the victims, and we also have to care about our criminal justice system and make sure it's fair. And I can tell you right now, I'll tell you, for instance, there shouldn't be a difference in justice for an African-American man, a white man, a Latino man, a man or woman. It should be the same. So if you have the same exact background, you have the same exact background and you're charged with the same offense, there shouldn't be a different result for an African-American
Right,
or a Latino.
Yeah.
That kind of criminal justice reform I am for.
Yes.
For sure. But when you have people that have gone out and held guns in people's faces and you're letting people back out, what do you think they're going to do?
Yeah. And just to clarify again, I've pointed this out before, but the data that we look at, if someone was out on one felony bond and they committed a murder, we would not even count them. I mean, we have only been looking at people that are multiple felony bonds, multiple times. Yeah. And I think it comes down to public safety. Don't you agree?
It does. It is public safety. And I can tell you, in whatever neighborhood I go into, I don't care about the socioeconomic, I don't care about the race, the creed, nothing, religion, nothing. Everywhere in this county, in this city, people want to feel safe. And I don't care about anything. I don't care what neighborhood it is.
Right.
All I get back when I meet with civic groups and civic clubs and people from all walks of life that make our county and our city so great is they are concerned about their safety.
Do you think that the whole idea of letting people out on multiple felony bonds is increasing crime, is increasing the homicide rate?
Yeah, I think that you're going to see, I mean, I'm sure that number exists to show people that are out that have committed these murders. I mean, I think if we focus, and in New Orleans in the early 90s, they had a group called the Harvey Hustlers. And the Harvey Hustlers contribute immensely to crime in New Orleans at that time. Well, the federal government and local government got together and started targeting the Harvey Hustlers. And they did a 2-year investigation. They arrested almost every person that was in that gang. And do you know their crime rate dropped to 1974 levels? Because the people committing the crimes actually got arrested and they were held in jail and crime went down. So we've got to focus on gangs. We've got to focus on violent criminals. That's what the public wants. If somebody scares you, we don't want you out scaring us.
Right. Well, another thing too, that some of these younger defendants, the system's really not doing them a favor by releasing them over and over again. For example, that we had a breaking bond last night with a 21-year-old guy who's accused in a 15-day period of committing 2 capital murders, one in the Heights, one in League City. He's 21 years old and he's facing 2 capital murder cases. I mean, did the system really do him a favor by letting him out repeatedly?
No, and that's tragic to hear. That's just tragic to hear. I mean, that's what the public is tired of, and I'm for criminal justice reform, sensible criminal justice reform. Risk-based assessments of having a tool that will help us assess the risk of people that are going to be getting out of jail and making sure that they're not going to go back out and terrorize the community. I mean, it's not fair to the community.
Well, and I mean, granted, everybody deserves a bond. Everybody should be able to post a bond and be out of jail pending trial. But it used to be one bond per customer, right? If you get accused or get a criminal charge while you're out on bond, you automatically you violated the conditions of your bond right there. So,
And frankly, the argument is that, the people that can afford the bond got out, and the people that couldn't afford had to stay in, and that's not equitable. But I'm going to go a step deeper. I'm saying that people that commit violent offenses, that once you get out on bond or get a PR bond, then if you go back out and commit a new violent offense, I don't know if you should be let out.
right, and that's the way it used to be. I mean, I think that's how judges in the past would view it. And yeah, the Texas Constitution requires that everybody gets a bond except for the charge of capital murder. And also, too, a judge could look at someone and say, well, you've been in prison 3 or 4 times. If you're a habitual offender, a habitual violent offender, the judge can say, sorry, but you don't get a bond.
Yeah.
Bob called in and asked, how do we get this back on track?
It's elections.
Yes.
It's elections. I mean, people have to look at everybody's record, and they have to hold people accountable for decisions they made. And you go on a job interview if you're an elected official every 4 years, and you go to the public that elected you and say, hey, I'm up for a renewal, and I want you to assess my record, and you get to see who I am as a person, and then that's how you do it. So this is probably the single most important local election that this county is ever going to see for a very long time. And people need to pay attention to everything that's going on around them. And the simple question they have to ask themselves, are you happy? And if you're not happy, who's not really at fault, but what changes need to be made to my community so that I can be happy and we can all be happy together? We've got such a great community, a rich, diverse, fantastic community that loves. I mean, I've been to 5 charity events this year, and every single one of the charity events during a pandemic has raised record money. So that tells you the heart and soul of this community. But at the end of the day, votes, people that make laws, people that enforce laws, people that are making the decisions that impact your life. You got to make sure that you reassess them during their job interview, their renewal of their contract.
Well, and I think in the past, I think judges, it's one of those races that you might look at, well, that name sounds familiar, or you might look for the party or whatever. But I think this year we really need to go in and look at someone's record, look at a judge's record, look at what they've done. And we're going to be doing several stories throughout the year and before the primary to kind of remind you all of some of the judges that we've featured in Breaking Bond. And again, we've made it clear, we want to talk to every single judge. If you're currently a district court judge, if you're running for a district court judge, get with me and we will schedule an interview and sit down and get your thoughts. We want to hear from everybody. I mean, we want to give everybody a chance to kind of chime in on this because, like you said, it's an important issue because crime, I think, is what people really care about right now.
It is. I mean, you got 3 basic tenements as a human being: your safety, your health, and your food. And if any one of those tenements is bad, you're going to feel pretty uneasy. And I can tell you, my own wife doesn't like to go out at night and go certain places. And so just last night we had somebody that was followed home from I think it was a restaurant or a store.
Yeah.
And you just, people that are doing I'm talking about these violent offenders.
Right.
And if we keep letting the violent offenders out and are expecting a different result, we're foolish. And I'm not talking about the first time offender of a violent offense. I'm talking about these people that are coming back to the same court multiple times. At Crime Stoppers this year, there was a guy that has been allegedly charged for the murder of somebody who had 2 ankle monitors on him, one from Fort Bend County and one from Harris County. And it's those kind of things where we're not collaborating on people that are committing criminal offenses in both places. But as I said to you earlier, I have a fiduciary duty. I took an oath of office that my job is to protect the public. and ensure fairness and ensure that people charged with crimes actually did the crime.
Yeah.
We actually have the evidence that proves it, not railroading people, not doing anything like that. So I take that job very seriously.
And another thing that we've seen a lot, and it is where you have defendants who they stop going to court. I'm not going to go anymore. All of a sudden they become a wanted fugitive. And for you all, that's the worst, right?
The
I mean,
worst.
yeah, it's like
Bad.
these people think I've got nothing to lose. I'm facing all these criminal charges. If I have to shoot my way out or run my way out, right? I mean, that's the attitude.
And we're encountering them on the street on a traffic stop or in a store or anything like that. And that's where things turn deadly. I would even go as far as say that it makes it harder on us.
Yeah.
Because we are encountering people that really don't want to go to prison for their actions. So they may be in a different state of mind to where they may want to engage law enforcement.
They're desperate.
Yeah.
They're very desperate. And we've seen law officers, at least 3 officers that have been killed by people out on multiple felony bonds. And we've seen at least 2 suspects where they got engaged with the police in a shootout and they died.
Yeah.
Again, it's like everybody's sort of in a very dangerous situation when you have that.
People want to feel safe in their communities, period. End of the day. And they look at us and say, what are you going to do about it? We're one piece
Right.
of the criminal justice system. And so we need to look at each piece and make sure it's being just and fair. But at the end of the day, when you have somebody that's out on multiple felony bonds and they're out re-victimizing people more, to me, that's not a fair system.
Right.
It's not fair. It's not fair to let that person back out after they've demonstrated they're willing to commit
Right.
2 or 3 different bonds, felony offenses. So for me, again, my job is to keep people safe, and that's it. Yes, sir.
Belinda asks, what does that do to the morale of your officers?
It's gotta be hard.
No, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad when the system fails the officers and cases get dismissed, or you arrested a guy and before you finish the paperwork they're already out of the system. Again, I'm not talking about misdemeanors. I'm looking at these people that scare us and that are making us making everyday citizens concerned. So it's terrible on morale. It's terrible on morale when you see people that continually cycle through the system and without many consequences. Now you go into some of the other adjacent counties and there's a different set of circumstances going on there. I hope it all goes to risk-based assessments of people, assess the risk of somebody charged with a felony offense. We assess how dangerous they're going to be to society and what things need to be put in place to ensure that when they get out, they're not committing new offenses.
And again, we're talking, well, you pointed this out, but again, we're talking about people that have multiple charges for aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault, family violence, those kind of violent crimes. And these people, these defendants, they're out on a violent charge. They pick up another violent charge, and they pick up another violent charge. I mean, they have to be stopped.
That I couldn't agree with you more. We're not talking about misdemeanors.
Right.
We're not talking about people like that. We are talking about violent offenders that we're all hearing about are getting out on repeat bonds. And so for me, the person that's charged has to have skin in the game too. You can't just continually let somebody out and again hope for a different result. When you have to put ankle monitors on them and you have to really focus on them, and they're showing back up for new offenses.
And and a lot of that, sometimes I feel the monitoring devices, it's almost a false sense of security. It's basically up to the defendant, right, to go to pretrial services, sign up, pay for it sometimes, and there's bond violations. You all aren't out doing that. No law officer, we can't have law officers out looking for people that have violated their bond conditions, because it's not, they didn't break the law, right? They didn't commit a crime. And there's no entity really that has the manpower to send people out. Hey, do you have your monitoring device on? Are you abiding by?
That's a basis for rescinding the bond, though. If you
Right, yes.
you take that off, your bond company should notify the court that you're violating the terms and conditions of being released on bond. So, yeah, I mean, all those things factor into it. But these violent felony offenders have to be either held without bond because they have shown a propensity to commit new violent offenses, or put it at a bond level that's commensurate with the types of crimes they're allegedly committing. And what I'm most worried about are those violent offenses.
Right.
And I think everybody else is too.
Right. Yeah.
Let's make room in our jail for people that scare us and that are committing violent offenses.
Right. Yeah.
And release those people that have trespassed.
We are not talking about, somebody stole a car or broke into the liquor store, nothing, or wrote a hot check.
Right.
Yeah, these are people that that's what they do. They go out with guns and they rob people.
Yeah, and you got people again that we hear that some of our repeat criminals are getting out and getting a bond, and they go back out to stealing again or doing some other type of criminal activity to pay for their bonds.
Right.
And so the bond companies, I know that they still charge 10% of the total bond.
Well, and they don't anymore. You figure, okay, there's no misdemeanor bonds. So, and bonding companies are legal, legitimate companies. I mean, that's their business.
That is.
And you have to have customers.
Yep.
They've got no misdemeanors anymore. So if you have a bonding company and I need bond, and you're like, hey, 6%, 5%. I mean, that's what we're hearing now. It's not the standard 10% anymore.
But what I'm hearing is it's 10% still. But what they're doing is they're saying, okay, put down
a payment plan.
Yeah, a payment plan.
Yes.
Put down 40% of the bond and then pay the additional up to the 10%. Whereas years ago, you could only get a bond if you could come up with the 10%.
Right.
And then you could get out.
Yeah, and what's the scenario you're describing, that's almost telling them that, right, they're out on bond. If they're already a convicted felon, how are they going to find the money to pay the bonding company? Right?
Constable Rosen, Mark Herman says, Constable Mark Herman says you're on the right track. He agrees with everything.
Right.
He's watching.
Thank you for watching.
And you guys have a lot of hellos and good jobs, but Constable Mark Herman's good job, Constable Rosen.
He and Constable Herman and I have talked about this several times now, this topic. And every law enforcement official that I've talked to, it's like, yeah, it needs to stop.
It does, because we, again, have a fiduciary duty to the people that elected us to keep them safe. That's our job. If you go to a doctor or a cardiologist for a heart problem, his job is to cure your heart problem.
Right.
Our job is to cure society of criminal behavior justifiably, with ethics and morals and all that. And so we're going to protect victims. We also are going to make sure that we get it right on the criminal side.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be fairness. But if you can't have a risk-based assessment of people, especially charged with violent offenses, then I don't know where it stops, and I don't know how many lives are going to be lost as a net result of that.
And you look at Harris County for so long now, we've led the nation in DWI deaths. We're coming up on Christmas, and you're going to have people out there that are out on multiple bonds for DWI.
Yeah, Mark Herman and I and the DA had a press conference this morning where a family, Mr. Devon, he lost his wife and 3 children a year ago, and is able to stand in front of a mic and talk about it. And it was an emotional time for the family, and it was amazing to be with him, and the fact that he's able to get up every morning and go to work and function knowing he lost 3 of his children and his wife, was amazing. But you're right. There are a lot of people that, again, are out on multiple bonds that continually go out and drink and drive. And then ultimately when somebody kills a family, the wreckage that's left behind, I don't think the public sees enough, because there's true wreckage. I mean, the victim's father passed out today at the news conference with emotion, raw emotion, because he just can't reconcile that his child and 3 grandchildren are not on this earth anymore because somebody stupidly chose to go and drink and drive.
And any of us on the road could end up having our entire lives changed by someone driving drunk.
Absolutely. And it's too easy to get around without that. I mean, you got your Uber, your Lyft, all your commercially available, $20, $60 will get you anywhere in town. And
and look how even if no one is harmed or there's no accident, look at how life-changing that kind of a criminal charge can be. It can cost someone thousands and thousands of dollars. They can end up with it on their record. I mean, I'm like you. There's too many other options out there for anyone to even think about.
Way too many options, and it's too easy to do that.
Kiki says law enforcement are risking their lives to protect us, but judges are letting the wild animals back out. It is sad.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's the system, any part of the system can't fail. And if you have a piece of the system that's failing or it's not doing what's just and fair, especially to these victims, you're going to have a failure, and people are going to feel the way that they feel.
This is one thing that I have never really been able to understand. They're making life and death decisions in a lot of ways. These judges are, and if I put myself in their situation, and I see that a decision that I made cost someone their life or possibly cost someone their life, that would make me really think, I'm not going to make that decision again, or I'm going to really give this a lot of thought before I even think about doing that again. But I don't see that. I mean, there's some judges that it's the same judges over and over again. And that's the part I don't understand, I think, is because
I think the public doesn't understand it either. I think the public is, and there are many facets of the criminal justice system that need more light on them. But I can tell you that that's where people are frustrated. Everywhere I go, that's the topic of discussion. And I think that's why people are so frustrated, is they want to know why. They want to know why that person's life had to be taken. They want to know why their purse was stolen at gunpoint. They want to know why. And I'm just referring to those violent offenders.
Right.
Those people that, again, you've heard me say it 4 or 5 times, that scare us, the people that do home invasions, the people that are scaring us, and the public wants to feel safe. You don't want to feel like we live in a third world country.
Right. And I'm glad you keep bringing that up, because that's what we've been looking at. We are not profiling defendants on breaking, but they all have multiple: aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon, a felon in possession of a weapon, domestic violence. I mean, it's all violent things. And you can see that on paper, you see it progress. Mm-hmm. That's the frustrating thing, I think, for me, is because I can see it and I'm thinking, why aren't some of these judges looking at all this on paper and saying, hey, we got to let so-and-so, we got to make sure so-and-so stays behind bars.
Well, I think they would, you've got to, I think that offering some of the judges to come forward and talk about some of the decisions and why, and then that'll get into their heads as to, decisions that were made one way or the other. So for me, I'm giving you the law enforcement perspective. I can tell you we are frustrated. Our job is to keep people safe, and we're going to do our job every day, all day, 365 days a year. But if there are other parts of the system that are failing, have them on your show, have them explain why they made a decision that ultimately cost somebody their life.
Yes, again, we want to hear from every single criminal district court judge in town and those running for it. We got to wrap it up. Thank you all so much for watching. Councilman Rosen, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.